Arrow was an amazing experience. It just felt like I was ready for the next thing. Being in this business, you continually have to bet on yourself. You will go through some sequence in the ring and you'll forget to breathe, which leads to you blowing up.
I love that we have heels to thank for getting CM Punk back in the ring.
And if that's 5% of the reason, I'm good with that.
Jumping over the top rope when you made your debut made fans go, he's the real deal.
Road Dogg was like, if you miss and stumble, there will be no match at SummerSlam.
When did you fall in love with wrestling?
I was 6 years old. I had my times where I fell off.
What got you back in?
What got me back in was Cody.
Maybe there's more of a story to tell with Cody.
Yeah, I hope so.
Just two guys from Canada hanging out here.
That's it.
It's two Canadians. Are you from actual Toronto?
Actual Toronto.
Because I tell people I'm from Toronto.
Yeah.
But I'm from Pickering.
Okay. So
you know what I mean?
When I say Toronto, I mean like Yonge and St. Clair.
Oh, okay.
You hear that all the time.
Yes.
Pickering, it'll be something like, where are you from? I'm from Toronto. Oh, really? Where? You're Bradford. You're not from Toronto.
But, you know, I love when you meet a fellow Canadian, they say Toronto.
Toronto.
People here say Toronto.
Yes. There's there's no second T.
There's no second T. We just Toronto. We just roll right through it.
That when I was shooting the first season of Heels with the accent, it's sort of like Toronto, where people, when they say Atlanta, it's spelled like ATLANNA, right? Atlanta, right? And you really have to dig into it. And I remember our dialect coach came up to me and was like, you said Atlanta. And I went, Atlanta. And then I watched the cut and they used the take where I said it wrong. Oh. And I was like, no, you guys, you cannot do this. Like if there's one word that I cannot mispronounce, it's Atlanta.
Yeah. So anyway. This is exciting, man. Heels on Netflix.
Heels on Netflix, September 15th. It is if you are a wrestling fan, Netflix is the place for you right now.
It really is.
We got Heels, which is 16 episodes. I count it as one season. Right, okay. The way that they want to put it out. The way that I actually think about it is, do you remember in the Andre the Giant documentary when they were saying that, like, for the purposes of WrestleMania 3, Hulk and Andre had never wrestled, right? But in actuality, they had wrestled each other all over the country, like hundreds of times.
Yeah.
God bless our original network, but as far as I'm concerned, Heels debuts on September 15th.
Okay, so why are you saying that season 1 and season 2 are just one season?
Well, I mean, there is literally no time cut between episode 8 and episode 9, which would have been 101 to 201.
Yeah.
It ends with, the big match at the state fair and the surprise ending. And the next episode picks up basically with Alexander Ludwig, who plays my brother, just walking out of the ring. It's direct cut.
Yeah. It feels like when you were cast for this, wrestling fans all around the world went, yeah, of course, Stephen Amell is going to be in a wrestling show. Because the lineage there and all your history in wrestling with WWE and Ring of Honor and AEW is like, yeah, he's one of us.
So it's my understanding that they tried to put the show together in 2017 and they couldn't, or maybe even earlier than that, and they couldn't cast it. They couldn't find the brothers. And then the project came back around in 2019 and it was an offer went out to someone that wasn't me. And from my understanding, when the network said who they put out the offer to, the feedback that they kept getting was, did Stephen Amell pass? So look, eventually it came around, but it was really funny, man, because I was finishing up Arrow, and I think we had like maybe 5 or 6 episodes to go, and I was very, very specific with my manager. I was like, A, I'm taking a break from television.
Yeah.
Okay. B, I'm not entering into another 6-year contract right away, and C, I really don't want to do anything particularly physical.
Okay. Well,
and then my manager calls me up and he's like, listen, an offer's coming on this one. It's going to be an excellent offer. Here's the script. And I want you to hop on the phone with Mike O'Malley, who was our showrunner on Heels. And are you allowed to swear on this podcast?
Of course.
I sit down and I read the script, and about 4 pages in, I go, oh, motherfucker. I go, this is obviously a yes. Like this, it was a yes right away. Yeah. 5 pages into the script, I was like, I obviously have to do this. And yeah, The rest is history.
Did you feel like at that point, like you were ready to get back in the ring?
Well,
it's been a while since you had taken a bump.
Yeah, it had been a while. So I did All In on September 1st, 2018.
People forget that too.
Yeah.
It was you versus Christopher Daniels.
Christopher Daniels. We can talk about that
and
all
we will.
day. Good. But yeah, I mean, I was towards the end of Arrow, I wouldn't say out of shape, but I stopped being able to work these 14-hour days and then get back into the gym. So I actually wasn't in particularly good shape. And then we were about to go to camera in April of 2020. We know how that went. Mm-hmm. And I had to get back into shape because we then eventually went to camera in September. But I think by like month 3 of the pandemic, I was like 170 pounds.
Shredded?
No.
Oh.
No. I think, what did people do for the first little bit of the pandemic? They basically just sat around and drank.
We all did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and just rewatched The Last Dance over and over again.
That's right. That and Tiger King.
I never saw Tiger King.
Well,
no.
It's on Netflix. So.
Yeah, no, we didn't like Tiger King because if it wasn't for Tiger King, the original Code 8 would have been #1 everywhere in the world. But instead, no. Fell by the wayside with Tiger King. So no, but
Heels will be #1.
Sure. But I got myself back into shape. And then of course, on the first day of shooting wrestling stuff, the first thing that I did was a coast to coast. And so we shot it. And now retrospectively, I easily could have put a mat down onto the ground, or just the way that they shot it where, I could land on my feet, but then we could do one where I land on a mat. So I did it, but I didn't clear as much of the ring as I wanted to. I didn't go as far as I wanted to. Mm-hmm. So I did it again and I jumped too far and I landed sitting straight up and down and knew something was wrong immediately. So it was a compression fracture of my T10 and my L1. First day of wrestling training, I broke my back.
What?
Everyone was like, okay, well, I guess this show's done with. But it actually, I think I was back in the ring in like, certainly back training within like a couple of weeks, because I was very, very lucky that it was really just straight up and down in terms of a compression fracture. So the pain was mostly all of the other muscles around it that then guarded and clenched up. But I actually had some lingering back and neck issues from 8 years of fake fighting on Arrow. And the ironic thing about hurting my back like this was that I had to go through this physical therapy, and all the little nagging problems that I had, they all went away.
Really?
Yeah.
When you have the experience that you have in the ring, do you get in there filming a wrestling TV show and you go, I can do it? Because there's a lot of ways you can cut around things.
Oh, yeah. Under no circumstances should I ever have attempted that. We could have cut around it in a variety of different ways. I do not have luck with the coast to coast. The only one that I've ever done where I haven't hurt myself was the first take, which ironically we definitely ended up using.
Okay.
But when I did the coast to coast at All In, I didn't realize it at the time, but I figured, okay, I don't want to smack the back of my head. So at the last minute, I'm gonna bail out and try to just land on my left butt. Mm. And we finished the match, and I'm back in there in the locker room, and I can't figure out. It feels like someone's put a tennis ball underneath my left hip. And I actually got a text from the Big Show, and he goes, "That coast to coast looked pretty stiff, man." It's like, I think maybe it might have been. Anyway, I fractured my hip.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I had to go right back to filming Arrow on like the Tuesday after this long weekend. And I definitely didn't ask permission to go to a wrestling match. So I had to sit everyone down and go, I am not to be treated any differently. I am fine. My hip hurts. I can't make it worse. I can just slow down the healing process. But that also turned out to be the episode that had the most amount of stunts in the history of the show. And the first thing that I had to do on my first day back was go into this dead sprint and then slide under a door. And as I'm sprinting, I can just hear tearing in my hip. It was horrendous.
This was a real match at All In too. This wasn't a quote unquote celebrity match. This
is
12 to 15 minutes with an absolute legend.
Yeah. So first of all, Christopher Daniels just couldn't have been a nicer guy. Was so helpful with me in the ring. I agreed to do it, but the only way that I would agree to do it is if I lost clean. Because I don't think people never do that in the quote unquote celebrity matches. So I was like, listen, I want to acquit myself really well. I want to, tell an actual story. But like, I want to get like one of those 1-2, but then I want to lose straight up.
Yeah.
And CD was like, absolutely not. No way. Absolutely no way. And I said, Chris, I'm not doing it unless you go over clean and we can, shake hands at the end and then I get to have my moment. I felt like also too, that's the way that you like get respect in the industry, like you go in there, you change with the boys and it's like, no, I'm going to lose clean.
Yeah.
But no, he took care of me in that match because there's so much adrenaline. So what inevitably happens is you forget to breathe. Straight up. You will go through some sort of sequence in the ring and you'll forget to breathe, which leads to you blowing up. I think 3 minutes into that match, I grabbed him. I'm like, we need to go home. And he went, shut the fuck up. Don't even move. I'll take care of you. And he did. He was great.
There are some things in life that are okay to be a total crapshoot, like trying a new type of milk in your coffee, or checking out the new takeout spot down the road, or a cheap impulse ad buy on Instagram. But finding a new doctor shouldn't be a crapshoot. And with ZocDoc, it's not, because you have more options than you know. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, from eye care to skin care, and so much more. Plus, ZocDoc appointments happen fast, typically within 24 to 72 hours, but like the one I got recently, sometimes you can score a same-day appointment. I use this, and you should too. I just booked my dermatologist using ZocDoc, and don't worry, everything is okay. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/insight to find and book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/insight, ZocDoc.com/insight.
I found a clip of an old interview that I did with you.
Yeah.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. Mm-hmm. And all I wanted to do was talk to you about SummerSlam and your match with
That's
Cody.
right, yeah.
And then we did talk about the movie, but you told me that match was absolutely, positively terrifying. We're talking about SummerSlam 2015.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I wouldn't recommend to anybody to have their first match at a premium live event in fucking Brooklyn. Okay? They're like, hey, listen, this crowd is not. This crowd is not going to be the easiest. And the one thing that you can't mentally prepare for, first of all, I came out, I was so nervous that I forgot to get in the ring. If you go back and watch the match, like Cody was like, you forgot to get in the ring because he was going to powder out and, do all that stuff. But yeah, that whole sequence, first of all, I went and I trained with Cody and,
how long did you train for?
I went on a loop with them. They were on Vancouver Island. So I went to that show and then they were in Vancouver the next day. And then Cody and I had a dinner that night with Brandy and my wife Cass. And then I went down to Everett with them again. And that's when we did the the run-in where he face washes me. And then I come into the ring. And, just even that was, I was the, guest hoster thing at Raw.
Yeah.
So I had to sit in the crowd for the entire show. And this didn't happen until hour 3. And, we had practiced this and the agent that we had was the Road Dogg. Awesome guy. And I was like, yeah, okay, Cody's going to face wash me. And then I want to jump up onto the apron and then sort of like not springboard, but just like whip myself over the ropes into the ring. And Road Dogg was like, no, you can't. You got to slide under the bottom rope. And I'm like, I don't want to slide under the bottom rope. I want this to be dynamic. Like I want to jump up onto the apron.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, but just so you know, if you miss and you stumble, there will be no match at SummerSlam because you will have lost the fans forever. right? They want to hate you. They don't want to like you. Okay, you're just some actor that's taking away a spot. So it's like, you're welcome to jump, but if you miss. And so about an hour and a half into the show, I realized, oh my God, we've practiced this a bunch, but I was practicing it in shorts and now I'm wearing dress pants. Like, am I going to be able to do this? So, there's probably someone saw me walking around the back of that arena, like jumping in my dress pants to make sure that they weren't going to rip. And then, once I got into the match, it was good, but we decided that we were going to start the match off with Cody springboarding into the ring and then me springboarding as well. And sort of, he's like, oh my God, holy smokes.
Yeah.
And I was terrified of messing up the springboard. Like, I practiced it 100 times, but I even said to him right before the match, I go, do we have to start with the springboard? And he was very, very accommodating and like really just kind of like let me do what I want. But he goes, yeah, we've got to do the springboard.
You jumping over the barricade, then jumping over the top rope when you made your debut there and got in the ring.
Yeah.
Made fans go, oh,
yeah.
Oh, he's the real deal.
Well, I think one of my favorite parts is you hear one of the announcers go, look at him move like that. But the whole thing there was, I was supposed to form tackle Cody. I haven't form tackled anyone since my last year in high school playing rugby. And then he goes, and then I just need you to get on top. And he goes, it's don't hit him with your knuckles because you might break a knuckle. Just use your forearms. He goes, but try to get one through. This is what Road Dogg says. He goes, you get one through, it's good for us.
Because I think that up to that point, fans were so accustomed to celebrities coming in and it just not looking great.
Sure.
Right? They weren't part of that world.
Yeah.
You came in and people went, oh.
Yeah, I think that there were a couple of things like I'm athletic. I'm not athletic in the way that like a lot of these guys are in terms of like the way that I know my way around the ring, but there are certain things that look cool and impressive that
play to your strengths then, right?
Play to your strengths. That's 100% right.
Yeah.
100%.
So I think that you really raised the bar for celebrity matches. Like
Thank you.
You walked so people like Pat McAfee and Bad Bunny and Logan Paul could run.
But I mean, listen, what I am in awe of what Logan does. That guy is out of this world.
It's like he was put on this planet to do that in the ring.
I mean, listen, I did my run in when I was in my mid 30s. So like maybe he's what, like 28, but he's been doing it now for a minute. So let's say he started when he started like
WrestleMania
25.
38.
Yeah.
So 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, mid 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like I'm 43, man.
But you are on the celebrity wrestler Mount Rushmore without question.
I do. I appreciate that a great deal. Cody thinks that Cody thinks I'm one good WWE match away from maybe eventually getting the Snoop Dogg treatment.
Okay.
Into the Hall of Fame.
When's it happening?
It depends on how much I want to stay in my marriage. No, I did say that, like, look, if Heels does come out and there is some potential with, the crossover and the synchronicity with Raw being on Netflix and, Suits is on Peacock, like the crossover elements are there for me in the WWE, but I feel like I would have to, I'd have to get my wife to sign off because she's had to take me to the hospital twice after matches. I mean, once for, when I hurt myself with Heels, and we definitely had to go get my hip x-rayed after All In. So maybe one more because I did go through the entire second season of Heels, and we did a bunch of stuff, and I came out fine. So I would need to protect myself a little bit.
Well, do you think there's more of a story to tell with Heels? Like,
sure.
Is season 3 a possibility?
I think that season 3 is a possibility. People are gonna have to watch it on Netflix. It's gonna have to line up schedule wise for me because I now have another job that's in first position. Mm-hmm. But listen, without trying to spoil it, we didn't want to send my character out quite literally on his back. There was always the idea that we would tell more of a story, and I think there's more to be told. I think that in the way that there's no real season 1, season 2 because 8 and 9 really line up. I think that if we did come back, you might see like a little bit of a time jump. That's sort of what the showrunner has pitched.
So does this give the show new life? Like when it got canceled on Stars, were you just devastated?
I don't know if I was devastated, but I was just like, I know that this show is good. Like I was really pissed off that, for whatever reason, timing wise, distance between seasons, like we might have just been on the wrong network. And that is not meant to be a knock at Stars and Lionsgate because, Jeff Hirsch especially who's runs Stars was a real champion for this show. And, they stuck their neck out to get us back to work during a pandemic. We were one of the first shows to go back. But we never found an audience. But like, I know people that I have met and they always want to talk about heels. And anyone that's in the business has seemed to like really love it.
Are people talking to you more about heels now or Arrow?
Still Arrow.
But Arrow was around for a lot longer.
It was around for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, it's a weird thing when you're on a show for that long because people think that it'll never be more popular than it is right when it comes out, like right in that first season, right when you get that I'm on a poster everywhere all over LA and New York, and we're on ESPN with commercials and all that stuff. But that's really not the case. When you're on for 8 years, you basically become like family to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. They grow up watching your show, or it's something that they did with a parent, or it's like it creates these like really, really cool stories, and you meet kids that are named Oliver and little baby girls that are named Thea and like all that stuff. So Arrow will always be, for now, the thing that people really talk to me about. But people do talk a lot about heels.
And what's cool about heels is you don't have to be a wrestling fan to love the show.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I really want to communicate. I mean, is it going to be helpful if you're a fan of like, indie wrestling and like, stories of that evoke memories of like Dusty Rhodes and all the guys riding around the territories back in the day. Yeah, that helps, but the wrestling is the icing. Okay, the storyline, the family dynamics, the idea of people wanting to make something of themselves and graduate out of a small town. Those are the principles of the show.
We'll get right back to the conversation in just a second, but guys, I love sleep. I love sleep so much. That's why this episode is brought to you by Miracle Made. And if you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA and use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating so you can sleep at the absolute perfect temperature all night long. And that means you get a better sleep every single night, because the more important thing than like the time spent in bed is the quality of that sleep time that you spend in bed. And because these sheets are infused with silver, they prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresher 3 times longer than other sheets. No more gross odors. So are they comfortable? Great question. They're as comfortable, if not more comfortable, than like the type of sheets you'd see in a 5-star hotel, but without that kind of price tag attached. It's summer. It's so hot out right now. The last thing you want to do is sleep hot. Go to trymiracle.com/CVV to check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. And whether you're buying them for yourself or you're buying them for a gift, if you order today, you're going to save 40%. They're on sale already, 40% off. But if you use my code CVV at checkout, you're gonna get an additional 20% off on top of that, plus 3 free towels. And they've got a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you really have no risk here. Trymiracle.com/CVV, use that code CVV for an extra 20% off and 3 free towels. Huge thank you to Miracle Made for sponsoring this episode.
Who do you think Jack is like in the current modern era of wrestling?
Well, I mean, I guess it would be. I guess it would maybe be Hunter. Maybe it would be Hunter. Maybe Cody. Yeah, I mean, I think if you look back at what Cody was doing at All In, and then with AEW, there's a lot of similarities there.
So if we take this back, when did you first fall in love with wrestling?
I first fell in love with wrestling, we're looking at 1987 or something like that. I was 6 years old. And someone got me the VHS tape of WrestleMania 3. And then, of course, I went back and I watched WrestleMania 1. I watched WrestleMania 2, but wrestling became my obsession. Okay, I will never forget getting in trouble in third grade. Some kid accused me of throwing a booger on him, and I don't think I did. Maybe I pretended. I don't think I did. But my punishment was I had my wrestling magazines taken away from me for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And I wasn't allowed to watch wrestling on Saturday morning.
That's devastating.
That was devastating. I was a huge Hulk Hogan guy. And then I think my first pay-per-view that I saw was actually WrestleMania 4 and WrestleMania 5. I watched on closed circuit TV at Maple Leaf Gardens.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, of course, I went to a couple of shows at Maple Leaf Gardens as well. But then, I mean, WrestleMania 6.
Did you go?
To WrestleMania 6? Yeah. Did I? Yes, I did. I went to WrestleMania 6. It was my buddy John Aird's 10th or 11th birthday party. And like these guys, we were in a box in the Skydome. And I'd say at the party, it's like people were kind of half watching, but like it was more of a birthday party with WrestleMania happening in the background. Not me. I was sitting up in the front row. My dad was there. And I mean, I remember all of the things from that night. The Jake the Snake $1 Million Man match was incredible. I remember, Dusty coming out and then bringing out Elizabeth, and the Skydome was shaking. And I remember Andre turning face, and beating up Bobby Heenan and Haku. And then, of course, the main event was just like, it wasn't the best for me because I cried hard, and I'm like crying in front of all these different like 10 and 11-year-old boys, and my dad's like, "Hey bud, just get it together, would you?" I'm like, "Sorry, but Hulk lost." I didn't think that him losing was conceivable.
Yeah.
He had never lost like in my life, with the exception of the fake Earl Hebner or whatever it was. He'd never lost.
Yeah.
I remember even, I think after that, he took some time away to film, but like, Earthquake dropped a bunch of whatever his finisher was called, and like Hulk was hurt, and I was like legitimately sad and devastated. And then I remember watching a award show, and he's supposed to be like on the shelf, and he was there, and he was wearing like a tuxedo with no sleeves on, and he was flexing, and I was confused because he was supposed to be hurt. And it was the first time where I started to actually like figure out like, oh my God, this is not real. It's actually scripted.
You know how excited fans are when you tell a story like that? Because they're like, he's one of us.
Yeah.
One of us.
Yes, sir. Oh man. Yeah. But then, I had my times where I fell off a little bit. I think sort of around like, I went back and rewatched WrestleMania 10. Goof. Yeah. That was a bit of a rough stretch. But
like
then
early 90s were
that was
rough.
That was a tough moment. But then, when Stone Cold came around, and The Rock and all that stuff, and the Attitude Era, I was way in. But then again, sort of in that, like, I don't know that I've ever sat down and watched WrestleMania 24. Like I was out for a little bit there. That whole Cena, Batista, Orton era, I just fell off.
So what got you back in?
What got me back in? What got me back in was Cody.
How'd that friendship start?
Yeah, so I just noticed that he was following me on Twitter, right? Because Stardust was supposed to be the super villain.
Yeah.
Right. So I was filming Turtles in New York in 2015, and he invited me to a Raw at the Nassau Coliseum. And so we get there, and he's like just about to put on his face paint and stuff like that. And then he comes up and he goes, "Hey, I just got it approved from Vince that I can hiss at you." And I went, "What does that even mean, Cody?" He's like, I got it approved. Like I can hiss at you. And I went, "Okay, what do I do?" He goes, "You stand up and look tough, and I will cower away." And I'm like, "Okay." And then we put it on, we put some of the photos and stuff like that in the video on social media. And this was back in the day when, I don't know if you remember, when you would have a Facebook page, and if you had, 3-4 million fans on it, you actually, when you posted something, you reached all of them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Before they took the algorithm and they made it super weird. So when we're putting those photos up, the numbers that they were doing and the interactions, I think just became impossible for WWE to ignore. And Cody fought really hard for our match, and I think that there were a lot of naysayers. I think that Hunter was a big naysayer, like didn't like the idea, from what I understand, but then came up and sought me out after the match, and we took a photo with, he's doing the too sweet, and he was like, "Respect, man."
Wow.
Yeah.
Feel like maybe there's still more of a story to tell with Cody here.
I hope so. Yeah. I really hope so. First of all, I could not be prouder of that guy. To do what he did, to walk away. Like, I don't want to speak for him too much, but I really do think that after our match at SummerSlam, because I remember it was like Neville pinned King Barrett. And then they did the camera thing where, as Cody's walking out of the ring, they got the camera on him and they got the camera on me, which is the sign, the universal sign in wrestling. We're not done.
Yeah.
We have unfinished business. And so the plan was, as best I can recall, was there was a pay-per-view after SummerSlam, and then the October pay-per-view was going to be in LA at Crypto, Staples, whatever.
Yeah.
And Cody and I were supposed to have a cage match. And just like, we were getting ready to send a ring up to Vancouver for me to do a bunch more training, because I basically faked my way through the SummerSlam match. Like, it was very, very, like, I could still probably take you through the beats of it right now. So the plan was to actually, go more the length, like I went with Christopher Daniels, like 12, 15 mints. And
Real
again,
match. Yeah.
the plan was to lose clean. And then all of a sudden, Cody just calls me up and he goes, "Look, man, I don't know what's going on, but our match just got shelved, and no one will give me an explanation why, and I am devastated and I'm deeply embarrassed." And I was like, "Look, man, it's okay. Like, that's okay." But I really think that was like one of the contributing factors to him leaving.
Because it wasn't long after that he left.
No, I mean, he left. I went to Mania the next year, my first Mania since 18, because I went the other time it was in Toronto.
Me
as
too.
well. Did you?
Rock Hogan.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We can talk about that in a second. But he was at Mania that year. He was in the ladder match to start it off. And then I think that he left kind of shortly thereafter. And I think, then he came out to LA. I was in Vancouver, and he actually stayed at my place for a while. Like, I think there's a chance that that list that he made of the guy.
Yeah.
I think he might have made that in my house. I think so, potentially.
Wow.
Yeah, I could be wrong.
I almost didn't go to WrestleMania 18. And I had tickets when they went on sale, like the November the previous year.
Yeah.
I was online, like refreshing Ticketmaster, and it was me and two of my best friends who I backyard wrestled with.
Okay.
We bought the best tickets we could afford.
Yep.
16th row on the floor for 135 Canadian.
Okay. I think I spent more money and got worse seats than you.
But
I think I got them on the secondary market. Like, you got them when they went on sale.
I got them when they went on sale.
No, I went with my buddy Matt Fullerton that I went to high school with, and that was a very, like, kind of underwhelming show. I remember thinking the entire time, like, when is the crowd going to get into this? Like, when are we going to have our WrestleMania moment? And then Rock Hogan. Hulk Rock was just the greatest match of all time. The place was electric. When he kicks out of the rock bottom and he starts to hulk up, the camera's shaking. You see people jumping up and down. I was totally in. When he dropped the leg, there was no possible way that the Rock was going to kick out. There was no way in hell.
Everyone talks about the stare down because it's epic,
yes.
right? Like they're both looking, then they do the turn to each side. Amazing. Yeah. They don't touch, right?
But, it was, I'd say that when the match started, it was like 55% Hulk and 45% Rock. And then he tears his shirt and it went to like 60-40. And then they did the stare down, but the thing that turned everyone was they did the lockup and then he shoved Rock off and he posed.
Yes.
And it went 80-20. And then they did it again and it was like 95-5. People were on the ride.
And there's a moment where Hogan is shocked by the reaction because he's been a heel for years at this point. And he looks around like, oh, that's for me. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it.
Oh, man.
JR even says like, a lot of fans cheering for The Rock. Quite frankly,
a lot of fans cheering for Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Yes.
Call it nostalgia. I don't know what it is, but then of course, I mean that's why Rock is one of the greatest of all time because he just turned heel.
Yep,
just like that.
Up on the fly,
just like that.
I almost didn't go because I was a freshman in college. I went to Wilfrid Laurier University.
Okay.
$135 when you're 18 years old is a lot of money. And we, just for fun, asked a scalper outside, how much would you give us for these? And I was like, floor seats, $500 a piece. We're like, oh man.
Oh, right.
And we had a moment where we're like, man, $500 each. We can go to a bar and watch this thing with our fake IDs.
Yeah.
Because I was only 18. And then my one buddy's like, you know what? It's WrestleMania. We should go. And people forget, this was right after the invasion angle and things were a little funky, right? There were a lot of WCW people that were coming in that we didn't really know.
Yeah.
And the only match that really stood out there on paper was Rock Hogan.
Yep.
A lot of the other people forget that went on third last.
Yeah, it's an all-time travesty that it did not go on last.
And everyone agrees.
I felt Trish Stratus is my girl. I love Trish. And she was the match on afterwards.
And it was like 4 minutes.
And people were leaving. I mean, Hunter Jericho at the end, I'd say that Skydome was 80% full by the end of it. And people were drained. It was all over.
There's a lot of epic moments that WrestleMania 18 is famous for, like Scott Hall taking the stunner.
That was amazing.
Like Arn Anderson out of nowhere.
Out
with
of
the spine
nowhere
buster.
was. I mean I think second to Hogan Rock, Flair Undertaker was a great match.
Great match.
Great match.
Yes. So I'm with you. And for nostalgic reasons, that's still my favorite WrestleMania.
Yeah.
But I went into it with the bar set extremely low.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, have I been to a better card top to bottom?
Did you go to 40? Because this last year was...
this is a real sore subject. I've missed a couple of WrestleManias that I'm really, really, really upset about. Like 38 when Cody came back. I was at a wedding in Montreal, and it's a Jewish wedding, so it was on Sunday. And on the Saturday, they were doing a welcome party for out-of-towners. And they did it like a keg. It was great. Julie, I had a wonderful time at your wedding.
Love the keg.
But I said to my wife, because Cody had texted me like 3 weeks before Mania, one word, Saturday. And I was like, oh my God, I want to go.
How do you respond to that, by the way?
And I mean, I was just like, I'm going to see if I can make it, is the response that I sent him back. And I mean, like, he sent me a photo on the day of him in the bus with his daughter, and like, you know, no one knows he's there. And we go to this welcome party, and then that Saturday night, Mania ends up being, Cody's match. I want to say that, there was a fantastic women's match as well. Who's the EST of the WWE? Why am I?
It's Sasha Banks.
No, not Sasha. Ponytail.
Yeah, Bianca Belair.
Bianca Belair. I'm sorry.
Jeez.
So she had an amazing
Bianca
match,
Belair.
and then the night closes with Owens Austin, which was one of the greatest. It was a spectacle.
What a fun match!
And Cody's match with Seth was so great. I got home. I got back to the hotel room that night. My wife's like, "I'm going to crash because we don't have our kids with us," and I'm like, "I'm going to watch WrestleMania." And she wakes up the next morning. She's like, "How was it?" And I go, "Yeah, we're not talking right now." I was so mad. And then, of course, we went to camera on the pilot of Suits LA in Vancouver the day after WrestleMania.
This year.
So I absolutely Cody didn't tell me that he was going to win, but I was like, he's going to win. Yeah. And one of the reasons that he's going to win is because I'm not going to be there. And I just know that I'm going to be hating my life. So I recorded a video on Instagram like a couple of hours before Mania being like, he's going to win. Okay. I actually, frankly, I had the match kind of pegged in terms of like how it was going to play out. It was like, they're going to go for like 20, 25 minutes and then we're going to get the Usos and I didn't catch the like Seth coming out, as a Shield member. And I definitely had the glass breaking as opposed to the Undertaker.
Right. I think a lot of people did.
I think a lot of people did, but man, that reaction to the Undertaker was amazing. But I mean, with due respect to the Undertaker, and I've seen him on this show because this show's like 90% of my algorithm on YouTube.
We're doing something right then.
But the glass breaking would have been just unreal. My buddy Zacho and I, we went to WrestleMania 32 in 2016, and they sat us front row right behind the announce table. And when Shawn Michaels comes out, and then Mick Foley comes out. It's like, who's the third person going to be? Michelle Beadle was actually behind me, and she's like, who's the third person going to be? And I'm like, are you serious? The glass is about to break, Michelle. And when the glass breaks, it was the loudest reaction I've ever heard, just the loudest, like, immediate pop.
Yeah.
But the camera immediately cuts to my buddy Zacho and I full-throated like this. and then sure enough, the following year, we went to Mania in, it was in not Tampa, was it?
Orlando.
It was in Orlando.
Yeah, 33.
And
Camping World Stadium.
Yeah, what a dump. What a
My
dump.
seats were right behind a pillar.
Oh my God.
The entire time.
The juxtaposition of the bowels of Jerry World versus the bowels of that stadium. I mean, it was because I was backstage with some of the guys. It was disgusting.
That ramp did look incredible.
The ramp did look good.
Yeah.
The ramp did look good.
But I'm with you.
If they didn't start The Undertaker halfway down it, we might still be at that WrestleMania.
Yeah, seriously.
But we so my buddy Zacho and I are like, okay, so we need to find a time to go get a beer, and we decided to go get a beer as they were introing all of the teams for the like fatal 4-way ladder match.
Oh no.
And so we're standing in line, and all of a sudden you just hear this rumble and you hear this music, and I'm like, that's the fucking Hardy Boys music. And of course, when we went back and watched the broadcast, they once again, when that music hits, cut to exactly where we were sitting, except we weren't there. And oh man, I had to own that one. I had to apologize for that one.
Quick time out here. Blue Chew has sponsored this episode, and they're giving you the first month for free when you use the code CVV at BlueChew.com. You just have to pay $5 for shipping. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost and in chewable form. All you have to do is sign up at BlueChew.com. The process is so simple. Consult with one of their licensed medical providers providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part is it's all done online, so there's no doctor's visits, there's no awkward conversations, no waiting in line at the pharmacy. This is delivered right to your door so you can turn up the heat in the bedroom. Oh yeah. Blue Chew wants to help you chew it and do it. Like I said before, the first month is free. You just have to pay $5 for shipping when you go to bluechew.com and enter the code CVV. That's right, your first month is free at bluechew.com. When you use that code CVV, you just have to pay $5 for shipping. Big thank you to Blue Chew for sponsoring the episode.
John Cena took a shot at you, or I guess more fair, Peacemaker took a shot at Arrow.
Yeah. That was a little unnecessary. I didn't fucking appreciate that at all.
It was crude.
And by the way, I don't know if they. Okay, I'm just gonna come right out and say this. Like there was such between the movies and between Peacemaker a little bit. Like our show was kind of treated like shit, right? Like I get it. We're on the CW. I get it. It's TV, but I also get the fact that, you know, when people think about the most recent iteration of DC, okay, they don't think about the Snyder Cut. They think about the Arrowverse. And we got crapped on for years and years and years. And this just seemed excessive. Like, again, I'm not actually mad, but like, just remember hearing that and I just remember being like, fuck those guys. Like, seriously, like I'm up here, I'm working just as hard as anyone else. You know how hard it is to play a superhero with no superpowers for 23 episodes a year? It's really, really, really hard. And like, I'm not looking for a prize, but like, maybe don't shit on our show. We might have to cut this out of the podcast. It's like,
well, you hit back at John Cena. You said, hey, I've been too busy showing Cena what professional wrestling should actually look like on TV. I thought that was a nice touch.
I mean, I've met John a handful of times. There couldn't be like a nicer, more genuine person. You know, if I should be mad at anyone, it should be James Gunn for writing that in the first place. But you know, he could not be a nicer guy. He's such a good guy. So I don't. It's not a personal vendetta against him.
Maybe there's a spot for John Cena versus you in the retirement tour.
I mean, sure. Why not?
Why not?
I'm scared of that guy though. He's huge.
He is very large.
He's large.
Yeah.
And it's
so kind. He's so kind.
Very, 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 very kind. Listen, all of those guys. The only guy that I didn't ever really get along with was Roman. Not for any particular reason, but like, you know, I'm on the loop with these guys and everyone was very inclusionary and he just kind of keeps to himself. And I think, so I don't think that it had anything to do with, I know that it didn't have anything to do with me personally, but yeah, he was the only guy that I never really, you know, got on with. Everyone else, like those guys are just like salt of the earth, welcome you into the dressing room. What can we do to help? Like, you know, Kofi's in the ring, you know, showing me how to take a bump. And he's like, oh my God, it's been a couple weeks. And you're like, oh, these guys are showing out for me. It's really cool.
Where is your Slammy on display in your house?
It's in it's in my bar area. We have a spot out in Palm Springs. And it's seen better days. One of the hands broke off. So yeah, it actually looks very, very inappropriate. The way that he's having to hold up the wrestler like this. But yeah, no, I just saw it yesterday.
Sounds like a good spot for it.
Yeah, 100%. It's right next to the DWL Championship.
Hell yeah!
Which doesn't look as good in person as it does on TV. Well, it's rubbery. Okay, right. So on television it looks like an actual belt, but in person, not so much.
You're one of the few people that have made an appearance in WWE, AEW, and Ring of Honor.
Yes,
and if you're tied into all of these worlds, in fact, at some point you could show up really anywhere.
Anywhere. Yeah, I could. Ring of Honor, man, that was a blast. And just to kind of like retrospectively think about, like, you know, wrestling with the Bucks and Cody.
Are you still in the Bullet Club?
Of course
Technically?
I am.
Okay.
Of course I am.
Here we go. Too sweet.
Man, I got my own merch. But I mean, so I will never forget in that match as well that the first thing that they wanted to have me do was just come in and hit an RKO. Never done it before, but let's give her a go.
Yeah.
And I did it. I did not land well. I came out of the ring and I'm standing in between Matt and Nick, and I turn to them and I go, I have a serious question for you. They go, what's up? And I go, is there steam coming off of my head right now? And they go, no, why? Does it feel like there is? And I go, oh yeah, my neck is jacked up. It was horrendous.
Man.
And then, so I have that regret from that match. And then,
do you have a regret from every match?
yeah, for sure. But the bigger one is that we had set up a great spot with me and Kenny where we hit the Hart Foundation's final move where I lift a guy up, he gets the clothesline, and we're supposed to go back down, and then we were supposed to wait, and I was supposed to wait for Kenny's call, and we were both supposed to kip up at the same time and then like celebrate in the ring, the way that he does. Yeah. And I was so excited that I kipped up immediately. Didn't wait for him. That I think that is the thing that is the hardest thing to do in the ring. The hardest thing to do in the ring is to slow down. Right before my first match, Hunter came up to me and he went, listen, when you get out there, slow everything down. And then when you are positive that you're going too slow it down. And then when you think that there is no chance in the world that you can go any slower, slow it down. I'm like, okay. And then I think back to like kipping up when I should have waited for Kenny, or, when I went through the table in my match against Christopher Daniels, like I could have taken 20 seconds to climb those ropes and really let the crowd stand up and let everything build.
Yeah.
I did the whole thing in like 2 seconds. Didn't even have time for the announcer. He just went, Stephen Amell, what are you doing? Although that didn't hurt at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
So that's not one of the regrets.
That's not one of the regrets. No, I have zero regrets from that. Yeah.
I love that we have heels to thank for getting CM Punk back in the ring.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, Phil wasn't originally in that part. We had shot a bunch of stuff with a different actor and a different actress playing, Ricky Rabies and I think Vicky Rabies, maybe. But then with everything that went down with the pandemic, they had to bow out. And so we got Phil in, and he was great, just great, like great guy to work with, good actor, and I stand by my match that I had with him. It was a lot of fun, and if that's 5% of the reason
could be
that we got him back in the business, then I'm good with that. Have you ever interviewed him?
Very briefly, 10 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. Super nice guy.
He's definitely on the list of people I want to have on the show.
Does not take any shit from anyone, period. That's another one that I regret not being at. I got the text from him, like, because I said, like, look, if you ever come back, I got to be there. And I got the text from him like 2 weeks before he came back, and it just said United Center. I was like, and I couldn't get to it. I had a commitment in Kansas City that weekend.
Oh.
But that pop was so loud that you couldn't actually hear anything.
That building's really special.
Yeah.
Like with the wood ceiling, the ceiling's a little bit lower.
I've never been to the United Center.
I was in there, and I was just like, early on, there were CM Punk chants as there would be in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I was like, it seems loud in here. Because I don't know what it seats, maybe 12, 14,000.
It's more.
It's more? Like 16, 18?
No, I think when they have Bulls games there, it's almost like 20,000. It's one of the bigger arenas.
Really loud. We have all the world's information here, so let's see. Seating capacity. It is Oh yeah, 20,000.
There you go.
Yeah, 20,000 for basketball,
Yep.
up to 23,000 for concert. It just felt like a lot.
That was a lot.
I was way off
That
on
was
that.
that was a cool
It was
moment.
very loud. And then AJ Lee as well. Because of heels.
Yeah.
AJ Lee
Yeah.
was in the ring.
No, she's great. No, she's El Dorado. No, she's just terrific. They were a lot of fun to work with. One of the reasons why I do eventually want a third season, if it is all possible, is just because, I mean, filming in 2020 and 2022 respectively, with all the COVID policies and stuff like that, it was a slog, and so you don't get to have the same camaraderie. I mean, I'd run into crew members in Atlanta, and they'd be like, "Hey, Steven," and I'd be like, "I don't know who you are. I'm so sorry," because I never, ever, ever saw them without masks on.
Yeah.
You weren't allowed to eat together. They weren't allowed to be on set unless they didn't have a mask, unless they had a mask on. Like, it was wild times to think back on.
Well, if the numbers are good on Netflix,
I think so.
Maybe some things can get into motion here.
I mean, listen, I don't know how the deal would work, but let's try to, I think that if a certain number of people watch it, the whole thing kind of becomes, like undeniable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I need like 3-4 weeks to get back into Jack Spade shape.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Well, I stay in shape, but man, oh man, what, like the whole idea on heels was to be like thick and strong.
Did you look at the shape that Zac Efron got into for the Iron Claw, and you just went, "Well, that's just ridiculous."
I think that was kind of ridiculous. no, I mean, he looked good.
He looked painfully in shape.
Yeah,
Like the way a bodybuilder looks when they step on stage.
yeah, that's not
impressive.
Yeah, it was very impressive.
Yeah.
I actually haven't seen Iron Claw. I have difficulty watching certain movies that I think that maybe I would have liked to have been in.
Did you get an offer for that?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't available. Couple of movies that I could have probably auditioned for, and maybe could have cracked, but
you could have been a Von Erich brother.
Arrow was a really prohibitive shoot, because we would go from the beginning of July until basically the end of April.
Wow.
And so, like, I remember getting the Top Gun Maverick audition and getting really pissed at my agents, because I was like, I don't know that you guys are paying attention.
What
Like,
role would that have been?
I don't know what role it would have been. It would one of the young
Like
hot
Miles
shots.
Teller role, or
I think it might have been. It could have been more of the Glenn Powell. I mean, obviously he was fantastic in that,
Yeah.
but it could have been somebody.
yeah.
Because I feel like they actually kind of wrote that part for him. So I think it was a work in progress. But I just remember saying to my agents, I'm like, in what world do you guys think that I'm going to be able to do this? Like there will probably be a boot camp to learn how to actually like behave in an F-18 that's longer than the hiatus. Like, how could you possibly think that I'd be available for this? And I got a little bit upset. I mean, even like for like something like Turtles, like I wouldn't audition for Turtles because I'm like, I don't want to get my hopes up for this. I am not going to be available. There's no way that this fits precisely into my hiatus.
So you haven't seen Top Gun Maverick, is what you're saying?
No, I have seen it. No, I have. I had to. And when I watched it, I was so mad. I was just like,
I get it.
Look, I'm happy for everyone that was in that movie,
Yeah.
right? God bless them. It was amazing. But like, Top Gun was my favorite movie growing up. So just to kind of have that tantalizing possibility of being in it, knowing that I was never going to be able to do it. But yeah, I still had to go see it.
But it must be difficult when you're given something to read for and you're like, oh, you get your hopes up of like, I could be in this.
Yeah.
And you're auditioning with a dozen other people or more. Versus sometimes when you're being offered something like, you're our guy, you're our number one pick for this.
Yeah, that was really cool on Stars to get that as an offer. That being said, I did audition for Suits LA. Aaron Korsh and Dave Bardis, who Aaron's the creator of the original and Dave's kind of his like his partner, like nuts and bolts guy. Nothing gets offered. They read everybody. Now they might offer a guest star role or something like that, or like a cameo, because we'll probably have a lot of people on the show with it being set in LA, play themselves.
Yeah.
But I auditioned for that, and oh man, I think they read everybody. Like, so you just gotta. If you're right for it, you're right for it.
Was that your first audition in a while?
It was my first in-person audition, maybe since Turtles.
Wow.
In 2015. I mean, there are no in-person auditions anymore.
It's self-tapes, right?
It's all self-tapes or it's Zooms.
Yeah.
I had a Zoom earlier in the week with, producers and stuff like that. But man, there is something to be said for getting in the room and,
Yes.
Stuff like I went in, so I'm reading for Ted Black, and, I find out after the fact that 15 seconds into my audition, Aaron was like, we got our guy. You don't know that at the time because it took I auditioned on a Friday and then I got the offer on a Tuesday, but the offer had some contingencies in it, which I think was just a negotiating technique because they eventually took them away. But then they spent the next, I spent the next 10 days waiting to see if the contingency was going to get taken away. Meanwhile, I'm getting texts and calls from people that I've worked with in the business being like, hey, we just had a great discussion with NBC. And I'm like, oh my God, are they vetting me? And they were. They were. And that is terrifying. Just terrifying. Like I've been a public figure now for the better part of a decade, and I've had my good moments, but I have my bad moments too. So it's it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be vetted, do you?
Of course, nobody does. Of course not. Did you go into it full suit? Like you were the character when you went in?
No, I didn't at all. Actually, I had been solo that week with my two kids. My daughter's just about to be 11, and my son was 1 and a bit at the time. And as you're about to find out, 2 kids is a lot harder than 1. And I actually remember I had to drive from one end of town to the other. And I had just gotten some weird news, and I had as close to a breakdown as I've ever had. Just emotionally, I was just shot from the week. And I walked into the audition just throwing caution to the wind. Who gives a shit? My eyes are probably a little bloodshot. I've had a tough week, and I'm just gonna bring an energy and a looseness into the audition. But the thing that makes an in-person audition great is, we get to the end of the first scene, and the director goes, Victoria Mahoney, she was fantastic. She goes, that was great. Aaron goes, I've got no notes. Now, being in the room, if you're on a Zoom, can't really do this. But I said, okay, well, just give me a note anyway, just so that I can show you that I can be directed.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, okay, I like that. And that's the difference when you're in a room versus when you're on a Zoom. There's something about the personal nature of being in there with someone and working on a scene that I think that, occasionally you might nail it hiring someone virtually, but I think more often than not, you might be leaving a little bit of meat on the bone.
Don't you also feel like with self-tapes, you've got the option to do 15 different versions, sure. Watch them back. That kind of sucked. I'm going to change this. When you're in the room, that's it.
Yeah.
One shot.
So my whole thing, when I used to audition all the time, the trick that I use, and feel free to use this, fellow actors, is I just go in there and I play an enthusiastic version of myself. Assuming, of course, that it's not a serial killer with a stutter. But if it's just if they don't really give much of a character description, then what I like to do is I just like to go in there, be an enthusiastic version of myself. So that's gonna give off a sort of a naturalistic vibe. Mm-hmm. And then they go, okay, hey, that was great. And then as opposed to you trying to figure out what they want from the character, they tell you. They go, hey, that was great. Now try this. So you get to show them in the room that you can be directed.
Yeah.
And I think that's done very well for me.
How does a kid from Toronto end up moving to the US and doing this for a living in LA? Because as a fellow Canadian,
Yeah.
working in the US felt like the furthest dream away.
When you're just getting started, you're like, how am I ever going to do this?
Yeah.
And
and am I going to work on the CBC for the rest of my life?
Right. Because I mean, you come here and they won't hire you if you don't have an O1 visa.
Yep.
An O1 visa for the uninitiated is a person with an extraordinary
Alien of extraordinary
It's
ability.
an alien of extraordinary ability. And I think that what you have to do is, and I'm a citizen now, so I can tell this story without getting into too much trouble, is I had a buddy of mine, he was producing a movie. It was listed on IMDb, and I had him write me a deal memo.
Wow.
I was not in his movie, but I think what you need for that is you need to like take all of your press clippings and like put them all together. And I had worked in Canada a little bit, and then you just kind of include that deal memo in there.
Yeah, like here's an offer of employment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and it worked, but then I had to get my permanent residence, and then I just became a citizen in August of 22. I got sworn in at Dodger Stadium.
Congrats.
Thank you.
People don't realize that getting the approval for the O1,
Yes.
then getting the approval for the green card.
Yes.
Like I remember getting the envelope in the mail and being like, I don't know what this is going to say.
Yeah.
And like opening it in my mailroom of my apartment and being like, okay. Oh,
You got it.
approved.
Yeah.
All right. I get to stay in
it's-
America.
But that's a real thing. You're like, am I going to have to leave?
Yes.
It's a real thing.
A real thing.
I mean, I was so lucky. I labored over, my kit for my permanent resident card. I labored over it.
I remember begging people to like sign letters.
Exactly.
Like people I hadn't talked to in a decade and being
Exactly.
like, hey man, how you been?
Yeah, and it's
I'll
like,
write the letter if you just sign your name.
yeah, and it's so stressful. And of course, like I remember, I went to the office that was in Montreal. You had to go to Montreal. The only appointment time was at 7, and you realize that like, oh, it's everyone's appointment is at 7. So I had to get there at like 5:30. It was like minus 31 degrees Celsius in Montreal. It was horrendous. And I got in there, and guy sits down, looks at my stuff for like 3 minutes and goes, "We're good."
Wow. And you're like, you know how much time I put in this?
So much time. I'm like, you sure you want to take a little bit of a closer examination of the packet here, my friend?
But I'll take it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Congrats. Congrats on all of your success.
Thanks, man.
You are, you're such an inspiration for any Canadian who's watching this.
Oh, thank you.
And going, can I do it? If someone like Stephen Amell or any other Canadian actor is able to do it, I can do it.
You got to remember that acting is a job, and you have a resume. It's just like if you're a doctor or a lawyer. And I think the difference is that the more education that you get, there's a real straight line there can be a real straight line to the top, and there can be a real tight tether between your position and the amount of money that you make. Right. It's not that way in the arts, right? Like you might be an amazing actor that does, off Broadway stuff and is, scraping by, and you might be mediocre, but land a show on broadcast television. You never really know, but you do have to remember that you do have a resume for a reason. So it's like, there are no small jobs when you're starting. Go be an extra. Okay. Work up to, a principal role, work up to a speaking role, get a guest star, get a recurring guest star, become a series regular. Like there is a path, right? And it's just, it's one thing at a time, and it can be intimidating, and it's, you just need the industry to engage in some way, shape, or form.
I may be completely off base about this, but I feel like everybody's going to get their break at some point. But is that 6 months in? Is it 16 years in? Is it 27 years in?
I mean, you never know, man. Like I've become pretty good friends with Giancarlo Esposito, right? He played Gus Fring on Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
He's in The Mandalorian. He's in the new. I mean, he's in everything.
Yeah.
And
he's in The Boyz.
He's in The Boyz. Yeah. And I mean, I see this guy a lot of times at conventions. First of all, might be the nicest human being that I've ever met in my entire life. Just has time for everyone, gives you a big hug when you see him, asks me about my family. Like, this guy couldn't be nicer, but I don't think that he got his break until he was like, probably like mid-50s or thereabouts with Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And what you see from that guy is a guy that struggled like to eventually get that break.
Yeah.
And, it's one of the things that I'm really trying to focus in on with Suits LA is, Arrow was this amazing experience. But I don't know how often I stopped to smell the roses, so to speak, to kind of appreciate the position that I was in. And like, I'm not saying that I wasn't grateful for the job. I was, but I kind of look at this as like another chance. Like this, I made the decision to end the show. We probably could have gone a little bit longer, but it was just, it just felt like I was ready for the next thing. So I think that, being in this business, you continually have to bet on yourself.
Getting just one series is huge.
Yeah.
You got that. Then you got another one.
Yeah.
And now you're on the cusp of a third one.
Yeah.
Hell
So listen, and the fact that, I haven't worked in Los Angeles since I was shooting Private Practice and New Girl in late 2011, early 2012. It's the last time that I worked in
They don't film
LA.
a lot here.
They don't film a lot here. When we found out that, we shot the pilot in Vancouver, why I had to miss WrestleMania 40. Shot the pilot in Vancouver, and it got picked up on a Friday. I was out in Nova Scotia shooting a movie called Little Lorraine, which should hit the festival circuit maybe early next year, I think is the plan. And then the creator called me and he's like, I've got like substantial news. And I did the math in my head and I was like, okay, what could this possibly be? And I figured that they might order like 2 seasons. Like we might get a 28 episode order and just shoot season 1 and season 2 back to back. That's where I landed. I thought that was like a reasonable thing. And he goes, we're going to shoot in LA. And I go, don't fuck with me. Like, seriously, are you serious? Because, again, one of the reasons why Arrow ended when it did was because we just didn't, I was just over the commute from Vancouver back to Los Angeles.
You get to sleep in your own bed here.
You get to sleep in your own bed. And, I can understand people saying, well, just move your family up to Vancouver. And it's like, well, okay, but Los Angeles is where we decided to live. That's where we want our daughter to go to school. That's where we want her to she's, huge into competitive swimming at the moment. And, Los Angeles was going to be our plan. So going back to Suits LA, I was absolutely positively 100% going to make it work. But we were having to make decisions like, should I just bring my son up there and we'll have a full-time travel. Like it was just, we were having to like consider potentially like breaking up our family. So, when I told my wife that we were shooting in LA, it's just like everything feels different. Like everything, like, we just went away for the weekend out to the desert. But the exciting part is that like, I just got to come back to LA.
Yeah.
And like, we had this booked. It's something to like look forward to. And I've been meeting friends of mine for dinner that I haven't seen in like a decade. So it's just really nice.
I love that. Congrats on everything. Thank you for making the time to do this as well. Man. Heels on Netflix, September 15th. I will be there. I love it.
Heels on Netflix, September 15th, and Suits LA at some point in early 2025.
Maybe we reconnect for another one at that point in time.
Love it.
Gratitude's such a big part of my life. It's the question I end with for every single one of these episodes. Stephen, what's 3 things you're grateful for as we sit here right now?
I'm grateful for healthy kids. I'm grateful for an absolutely unbelievable partner in my wife, who is like my best friend, and can, you know, that I have the ability to just share everything with. You know, like, I swear to God, I manifested this woman. I was at a movie in Toronto with my sister on Christmas Day night, and I'd just gone through a terrible breakup, and she was like, "Do you ever think you'll, you know, get back on the horse?" And I said, "I'm looking for a beautiful, smart girl from Texas who loves football." And she grew up just outside of Houston, and she loves football, and she's incredibly intelligent and very easy on the eyes. And then the third thing I think is just, you know, I've had wonderful people to work with and to lean on in this business, which, you know, can be a little bit cutthroat, but, you know, be it Greg Berlanti, who did all the Arrowverse shows, or, you know, Mike O'Malley, who was the showrunner on Heels, has, both those people have taught me so much. And then I get the same vibe from Aaron Korsh that I did from both Greg and Mike. And, you know, that's just, I'm incredibly fortunate. I try to always remember it.
Well, thanks again, man.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you.